Okay. A very good morning to all of you. Today's topic is on the object-oriented databases. So today we will see different kinds of data types, different kinds of structures, and what are the requirements for designing object-oriented databases. In the last class, we have discussed about what is object-oriented database, what are the advantages and disadvantages of object-oriented database, and how it is different from relational database management system. So today we will see some more data types or some more properties of object-oriented database. Before starting, first I would like to describe the topics covered in today's lecture. The need for complex data type. First, we will define the need for the complex data type. Then, what is object-oriented data model, and what is the language for such kind of data model, and what is persistent programming language, and what is C++ system. As all we know that object-oriented database was originated with the development of C++. C++ is a computer programming languages. So C++ is used for defining any object-oriented data model. So we will see how we can apply C++ programming language for object-oriented data modeling. Okay. So first, as in the last class, I have already discussed, when we are dealing with complex data sets, then we will use object-oriented data model. One of the important characteristics, or you can say one of the important property of object-oriented data model is that it can work efficiently for complex data type. When you are having complex data set, or when you are having a data set which is very difficult to define any kind of relationship, for such kind of data sets we can easily apply object oriented data model or object oriented database. Okay, so traditionally the database application in processing had conceptual simple data types. Okay, like in relational database model, we simply use some kind of data sets, then we can define the relationship. The relationship may be of different types, one to one, one to many, or many to many kind of relationship. Okay, so when we are going to use object oriented data model, it is a kind of advanced version of any kind of relational model that deals with the complex data type. So why we need complex data type for object oriented data model? The complex data type have grown more important in recent years. Okay, because right now the data sets are increasing day by day. We are having a large number of huge amount of data sets. So it is a some kind of complexity is there, and if you are having complex data sets, then it is very difficult to define any kind of relationship among the data sets. Okay, so to deal with such kind of data sets, to deal with complex data types, we need to apply object oriented data model. The complex data types have grown more in recent years. For example, address of a person can be viewed as a single string. It may have separate attributes for each part, or it may have composite attributes which are not in the first normal form. Okay, it is often convenient to store multi-valued attributes. When we are talking about a relational data model, in relational data model we are using some attributes. Okay, but that attribute is single valued data. But when we are dealing with complex data type, we may have multi-valued attributes, that may be multi data sets, and without creating a separate relation to store the value in the first normal form. So the application of such a complex data type is that right now we are using CAD, that is computer aided designing. In computer aided designing, we use computers to design something. We can use it for civil engineering, we can use it for mechanical engineering or any kind of engineering branch. Computer aided designing can be used. Okay, so for such kind of applications we need to apply object oriented data model. Okay, and right now most of the database is having multimedia format. That is, the data is in the format of images, it is in the format of video or audio file or animations. Okay, so if we are dealing with such kind of data sets, that is not normal data sets, but it is having some multimedia data formats, multimedia files, then we need to apply object oriented data model. Because when we deal with multimedia data, so it is very difficult to find out any relationship between different kinds of images or different kinds of animations or different kinds of audio and video files. So that's why we need to have complex data types when we are going to use object oriented database or object oriented data modeling. Okay, so what is object oriented data model? So in simple word, we can say an object corresponds to an entity. As all we know that each and every object in the world is considered as an entity, which is already discussed in entity relationship model. Okay, in entity relationship model, we should have some entity. That entity may be any real world object. It may be any tree, it may be any building, it may be anything which you can observe in the real world. Okay, so an object can be considered as an entity, like in ER data model, that is entity relationship data model, and the object oriented paradigm is based on the encapsulating the code and the data that is related to an object into the single unit. Okay, the object oriented data model is a logical data model like ER model. Okay, in some cases we need to apply logical data model for generating object oriented data model, and adaptation of such kind of object oriented programming, we need to apply C++ programming languages. Okay, if we are dealing with complex data type, if we are having complex data sets, and if you want to work on object oriented data model to store that complex data type, so we need to apply C++ programming languages. So in simple word, we can say that object oriented data model deals with an object. That object may be any entity of the real world. It may be any object whatever you can observe in the real world. Okay, so for storing the data of such kind of objects, we need to apply object oriented data model. Okay, so what should be the structure of that object? When we are having some object, or you can say when we are dealing with some entity, some real world object, so what should be the structure of that object? So an object has associated with it set of variables that contain the data for the object, and the value of each variable is itself an object. A set of messages to which the object responds. Each message may have 0, 1 or more parameters. A set of methods, each of which is a body of code to implement a message. A method returns a value as the response to the message. Like first we talk about variables. Variables mean when we talk about any entity, so entity may have some variable. When we talk about any road layers, when we talk about any vector format or raster data formats, that may contain some variables. Okay, variables may be one or more. Okay, so a single variable, if the data or entity having single variable, then it can easily be managed by relational data model. But if there are more than two variables, three variables of that object, so we need to apply object oriented data model. So the physical representation of the data is visible only to the implementer of the object, and the messages and the response that provides the external interface to the object. So the term message does not necessarily imply the physical message. Messages can be implemented as procedure invocations. Means message means what kind of procedures you are going to apply for managing such kind of object or for managing such kind of complex data sets. That is a kind of message. And method is also important. What method you are going to apply, what is the what kind of code of your you are going to apply, and what kind of response you are going to receive after running that program or after running that code. Okay, so the methods are the programs. It's a kind of methods means it's a kind of programming language, or it's kind of program code that can be written in general purpose languages with the following features. It may have only variables in the object itself that may be referenced directly, or data in other objects are referenced only by sending the messages. Methods can be read only and update. Read only method do not change the value of the object. Okay, so you can have two types of methods: read only method and update method. Read only method doesn't change anything in your data in your object, but if you want to update your database, so you need to apply updated method. You need to apply some other method so that we can easily change the value of that object. Okay, and every attribute of an entity must be separated by a variable and two methods, one to read and other to update the attribute. Okay, we are dealing with multi variables, so we need to apply two methods. One method will be used to read that variable, and other method will be used to update that variable, the attribute of that variable. For example, the attribute address is represented by a variable address and two messages that get address and self address. For convenience, Many object-oriented data models permit the direct access to the variables of other objects. So what is object classes? Okay, so similarly, objects are grouped into separate classes. Like if we talk about individual tree, so if a garden having multiple trees, so that garden can be considered as a class. So a group of the objects are considered as a class, and each object is called as the instance of its class. Object may have the same variable with the same type. It may have some message interface, or it may have some methods. They may differ in the values that may be assigned to the variables. For an example, we group objects for the people into a person class, and the classes are analogous to entity sets in the ER model. So when we talk about object classes, it's more or less similar to the entity sets, which is discussed in the ER model. Entity sets is a kind of grouping of all the entities of the real world that can be stored as a separate class. Okay, so here we can say that objects are considered as a kind of entity, and entity sets are the collection or the group of all the entities, or you can say the group of all the objects in the real world, that is known as entity set. Okay, so this is the code for defining the class. Okay, if you are going to define the class, if you are going to define what kind of data you are going to deal with. Okay, so this is the sample example, this is sample code for the class definition example. So it is written here like class, that is here the class is employee. Okay, so we are dealing with the data, that is data about the employees. So employee may have different variables. Employee may have different name. Employee have different addresses, different joining date, different salaries. So you can see here we are dealing with a class that may have multiple variables. Okay, for such kind of data sets, we need to apply object-oriented database model, and object-oriented database model can easily handle such kind of data sets, such kind of classes that may have multiple variables. Okay, so the methods to read and set the other variables are also needed with the strict encapsulation. So here you can see there are two kind of methods. One method is used to read the data, and another method will be used to analyze or to update that data. Okay, so first we define the class by the variable, then that we need to apply what kind of variable we are having. If we are having a string or date, integer, then message having annual salary, get name, address, and set the address for new address. If you are going to change the address of a present employee, then you need to apply some other method. So this is the way, this is the sample code, or it is an example of how we can define the classes for object oriented database model. Okay, inheritance is an important property of object oriented data model. Okay, so for example, the class of bank customers is similar to the class of bank employee. So although there are differences, so both share common variables and messages, that is name and address. Okay, and both are having variables and messages that is specific to each class. For an example, the salary of the employees and the credit rating for the customers. So every employee is a person, thus employee is a specialization of person. Similarly, customer is also a kind of, is a customer is a specialization of person. A customer is also a person, so we can create the class person, employee, and the customer that may have different variables. A person may have different properties. A person may have, if a bank is having multiple customers, so each customer may have different date of birth, different address, different age group. So it may have multi variables, and it may be applicable to all the persons associated with the class person. And in the same way, the variables or messages is specific to employees associated with class employee, and is similar to the customer. So inheritance means the internal property, means it's you can say inheritance means the data set having some internal characteristics, internal attributes, that is known as inheritance. Okay, so this is the way we can define the inheritance in a graphical form. So place, that is classes into the specialization, A variable or a message belonging to a class person are inherited by the class employee. So result is a class hierarchy. A person may be an employee or customer, but if we are going to only focus on the employees, so a employee may have different properties. It may have the different, it may work under different officer, it may have different tailor or secretary. So note, it is important to note that we can also use hierarchical data model, hierarchical data structure, to define the inheritance or to define the inherent property of any object oriented data model. Okay, this is the sample code of how we can how we can define the hierarchy of the class. So we can start from the class person, then the name of the person may be a string or address. Okay, so if we are going to define the name of the person or address of the person, it may have a string or text also. So customer person, credit rating is there, the employee person, what is the start date, what is the joining date of that employee, how much salary he is getting. Okay, so and under which officer he is working, and what is the officer number, and what is the account number of that specific person or customer. So this is the way we can write a code for defining the class hierarchy in case of object oriented data model. Okay, so here the class hierarchy example continued the full variable list for the objects in the class officer, the office number, the expense account number. It may be defined, that may have different variables. The methods also similar to the variables. Substitutably means any method of a class, say person, can be evoked equally well with any object that may belong to any subclass, such as subclass officer of the person. Class extent, there may be different classes. There may have two options: the class extent of the employee, that may include all the officers, tailors and secretary objects, and it may also have the employee objects that are not in the subclass, such as officer, tailor or secretary. So this is the usual choice in object oriented system. It can be accessed it can be extended the extents of the subclasses to find out all the objects of subtype of the employee. So when we are going to apply hierarchical data model for object oriented database, so we need to work for the substitutability and class extent. Okay, substitutability means if you need to change the method, if you need to change any data, then you can use the substitutability option, and you can also define the class extent. So for that we have two options: class extent of the employee, that includes all the officer name, or we may have class extent of the employee includes only the employees object that are not in the subclass, such as officer, tailor or the secretary. Okay, so this is the multiple inheritance. This is a hierarchical process of defining the relationship between different objects, or you can say different employees or customers. Okay, so you can see here how much it is useful to define the class, and how we can define the relationship of the class. It is started from the person. A person may be employee or customer. So if it is if it is employee, then it may have different question is there. If he is temporary or permanent. Okay, if he is temporary, then under which department he is working, secretary or tailor. Then if he is permanent, so under which officer or under which department he is working as a permanent employee. So you can see it's a kind of hierarchy. We have started from the person, and at last we can have the entire information about the person as an employee or as the customer. So this is the example of multi inheritance. So you can see here how much complex it is to define the relationship between the different objects or different entities. So for that we need to apply object oriented data model, which is very important to deal such kind of complex data sets. Okay, multiple inheritance, like when we are dealing with multiple variables, so we need to apply multiple inheritance property. With multiple inheritance property, a class may have more than one subclasses or superclasses. So the class or the subclass relationship is represented by direct acyclic group, DAG. Okay, if a class may have multiple classes, or you can say a class may have a superclass. So this kind of relationship is known as direct acyclic graph, that is DAG. So particularly it is useful when your object or entity can be classified in more or two ways which are independent of each other. Okay, a class inherits variables that may have the methods from its superclass. There is potential for ambiguity when a variable or message with the same name is inherited from the two superclasses A and B. Okay, so multiple inheritance is a kind of property in database management system, or you can say object oriented database management system, that deal with the multiple classes. Okay, a class may have many subclasses, or a class may have a superclass. So if there is such kind of property, so we can also deal it with multiple inheritance property. That can be very much useful if there is a ambiguity when a variable or messages with the same name is inherited for the two superclasses A and B. This is another example how we can apply multiple inheritance. So conceptually, we can say that an object can belong to several superclasses or subclasses. Okay, so it can be used multiple inheritance to model the roles of an object, and but it is important to note that the many systems insist an object that should have a most specific class. That is, there must be one class that an object belongs to, which is a subclass. And we can also create superclasses or subclasses of a same class, like such as there is a class student and teacher. So you can also define subclasses that a student may be a football player, a student may be cricket player, or a student may have any player. Teacher may have some different subclasses, the subject, the expertise, and other salary and other properties may be there. So when we have different combinations, so we can create subclasses for each combination that can be cumbersome. Okay, so object identity is another important term. An object entity, like you can say, an object retain its identity when if some or all the values of the variable or definitions of the methods changes over time. Object identity is a stronger notion of identity than in programming languages or data models that are not based on the program or object oriented. Okay, so object identity means when we are dealing with a data, when we are dealing with a entity. So a entity may have a value, it may have some name, it may have some origin, it may have some other properties. So a object can retain its identity even when if some or all the values of the variables may change over the time. Its identity will be same, but their variables may change over time. So that is known as object identity. So if we are talking about the data, so value is a data, like primary key value used in the relational system. Name, each and every identity or each and every object or each and every entity may have some name that may be supplied by the user or the programmer, that may be used for the variables in the processing of that data. Built-in identity, like what kind of data is there, what is the inherent property of the data, that may be defined as different data models or programming languages. No user supplied identifier is required. It is the form of identity that is used in object oriented systems. So object identity is important. When we talk about object identity, the identity of each and every object, or you can say identity of each and every entity or any data in the real world, it will be remain same, but their variables may change over the time. Okay, their value, their name, their built-in properties, it will not change over the time. These are the identities of that object, that an entity or any real world object. Okay, so object identifiers, so we need to apply different identifiers to define the object identifiers are used to uniquely identify different objects. Okay, object identifiers are unique. No two objects may have the same identifier. Each and every object have the unique identity. Okay, each object has only one object identifier. For an example, the spouse field of the person object may be an identifier of other person object, and it can be stored as a field of an object to refer to the another object. It can be system generated identifier or external identifier. The system generated identifier will be created by the database, or external identifier may be created, may be used by some social security numbers. So you need to provide a unique identity to each and every object. That may be the name of that object, that may be the primary key of that object, that may be any unique ID, any sequence number, any serial number that may be unique to that object, that is known as object identifier. So each and every object should have at least one object identifier, and no two objects have the same identifier. Like no two data sets, like when we talk about primary keys, so no two objects should have the same primary key. Primary key is a unique identity that may be used to define, that may be used to identify several object, any object or any real world entity. Okay. So if it is having system generated identifier is there, so these are easier to use. If we are going to use system generated identifier, the system automatically provides some number. A system or a computer or any software can automatically provide some number, some unique ID, like in your ArcGIS, when you digitize point line polygon feature. So you can see when you open the attribute table of that point line polygon features, you may see here there are a ID. So that user ID, or you can, that ID is unique, and that is system generated identity, system generated identifier. So these kind of identifiers are very easy to use, but it cannot be used across the database system. So it may be redundant if unique identifier already exists. So it is better to use system generated identifier, but you need to check that if the same identifier is already exist in that database or not. If it is not there, then you can easily use system generated identifier. So when you digitize or when you run any operation in the software, it automatically provide a unique identity, unique identifier to each and every output. That is known as system generated identifier. Okay. So this is the way we can have the object contamination. Object contamination, like suppose bicycle is a object, it's a real world entity. So it may have four different properties: wheel, brake, gear, frame. Okay. Now in the second step, under wheel we may have rim, spokes, tire, and the brake we have lever, pad, and cable. So each component in a design may contain other components. When we are talking about a component of bicycle, the bicycle may have different components, and each and every component of wheel, brake, gear, frame is also having multiple components. So each component may contain other components, and it can be modeled as contamination of the object or containment of the objects, that may contain other objects that are called as composite objects. So multiple level of the containment creates a containment hierarchy. So it's a kind of containment hierarchy. It links the interpreted as is part of not is a. It allows data to be viewed at different granularities by different users. So this is known as containment hierarchy. Containment hierarchy means we can store multiple values, and multiple values can be contained in a single component. The bicycle is having different components: wheel, brake. So under wheel we may have different components. So such kind of arrangement is known as object containment. Under wheel, wheel is also a component of bicycle. So under wheel we may have different components, we may have other components under wheel, that is rim, spokes, and tire. So this is known as object containment. It allows the user to view the data at different granularities by different user for different applications. Okay. So it is also having the links in the form of each part of each. So wheel is a part of rim, or wheel is a part of bicycle, or rim is a part of wheel. So you can work on the object containment. Object containment may be defined by each part of, or not each part of. Like wheel is a part of bicycle, so wheel may be considered as the component or containment of the bicycle. Rim is a part of wheel, so rim may be considered as the containment or the part or sub part of that wheel. So this is the way we can interpret the relationship of different objects in the object oriented database model. It is known as object containment. Okay. So now object-oriented languages is very important. As we have already discussed, the emergence of object-oriented languages are started with the development of C++. So C++ programming language is used for designing any object-oriented database model. So object-oriented languages, when we talk about object-oriented languages, it may be used in different ways. Like the object orientation can be used as a designing tool, and it can be encoded into different formats. For example, relational database model. So object-oriented languages works as a same way in which we use modeling of the data with ER diagram that will convert to a set of relationships. So the concepts of object orientation can be incorporated into a programming languages that is used to manipulate the database. And object relational systems and persistent programming languages. Object oriented languages may be of two types. One is object relational systems that can add the complex data types and the object orientation to relational language. Second type of language that is used for object oriented data model is persistent programming languages. So persistent programming languages extends the object programming languages to deal with the database by adding the concept of the persistence. Persistence means there will be no change in the data model. So these two are the languages that can be used for object-oriented database modeling, that is object relational systems and persistent programming languages. The persistent programming languages allow an object to be created and stored in a database, and it may be used directly from the programming languages. It allows any data to be manipulated directly like SQL. Okay, so for such kind of manipulation, we don't need to apply structured query language. Persistent programming languages directly manipulate your data set without using structured query language. There is no need of any explicit data format. It don't need to change the data format. It can work on any data format. It can be work on string. It can be work on any kind of uh, data sets, whatever you are using. Format changes are not are carried out by the system. Without a persistent programming languages, the format changes becomes a burden on the programmer. Okay, so when you use persistent programming language, there is no need to change the data format. It can work on all the data formats. Okay, because if you are going to change the data format, you need to write more codes, and that will be the extra burden to the programmer. Okay, and persistent programming languages also allows the objects to be manipulated in the memory. So we don't need to have any extra storage or any extra memory. So no need to explicitly load from or store to the database, and it may be saved the code and save the overheads of loading, storing, and large amount of the database. It may have certain drawbacks also. Persistent programming languages is having some drawbacks. Due to power of most programming languages, it is easy to make programming errors that demand the database, that may damage the database, or the complexity of the languages makes automatic high level optimization to more difficult, and it do not support the declarative querying as well as relational database model. Okay. So now moving to the next slide, the persistence of the objects. So we may have different approaches to make the transient objects to do the persistence of the objects. That may include the persistence by class, persistence by criteria, persistence by marking, persistence by reachability. So we can work on the persistence of objects on the basis of the class, on the basis of the creation of that model, on the basis of the marking and the reachability. So persistence by class means we need to declare all the objects of a class to be persistent. That is very simple but inflexible. Persistent by creation includes the extension of the syntax for creating the objects to specify that an object is persistent. And persistence by marking includes an object that is too persistent beyond the program execution, which is marked as the persistent before program termination. And persistence by reachability, it may be used to declare the persistent objects, and all the objects are persistent if they are referred to directly or indirectly from the root objects. So this is the way We can perform the persistence of the objects either by class, either by creation, marking, and reachability. So persistence by reachability is very easy for the programmers, but it may have more overhead of the database system, similar to the garbage collection used in Java, which also performs the reachability test. Okay, object identity and pointers. Okay, it is very important when we are going to identify an object. So a persistent object is assigned a persistent object identifier. So degree of the performance of the identity is in intra procedure, intra program, or inter program, or persistent. Intra procedure includes the identity which is persistent only during the execution of a single procedure, and intra program having the identity which is persistent during the execution of a single program of the query, whereas inter program, which is the identity that is persistent from one program execution to another, but may change if the storage organization is changed. And the persistence by the inter program, that is a persistent from one program execution to another, but may change if the storage organization is changed. And persistent, last one is persistent, which is the identify, which is used to identify, or which is used to identify the persist throughout the program execution and the structural organization of the data. So when we are going to apply the persistence on the database, or you can say the objects, we need to apply different procedures. It may have degree of performance. It is based on the degree of performance: intra procedure, intra program, inter program, or persistent. In object oriented languages like C++ is a kind of object oriented languages, an object identifier is actually an in-memory pointer. So what is persistent pointer? Persistent pointer persists beyond the program execution, and it can be thought of as a pointer into the database. For an example, we need to specify the file identifier and offset into the file. So the problems due to the database reorganization have to be dealt with key keeping by the forwarding pointers. Okay, so this is all about the object identity and pointers. Now storage and access of the persistent object. Persistent object means the object which cannot be changed over the time. Okay, so how to find object in the database? So first you need to have the name of the object as you would name the file. It cannot scale to the large number of objects. Typically it will be given only to the class extents and other collections of the objects, but not objects. It may be exposed the object identifier or persistent pointers to the objects. It can be stored externally. All the objects have the same object identifier. It may have the collection of the objects and allow the programmers or the programs to iterate over the collection to find the required objects. It may have model collection of the objects as collection types. It may have class extent, that may be the collection of all the objects belonging to the class, that may be usually maintained by all the classes during the persistence process. So as we know that object-oriented data modeling can be done by C++ programming system. So C++ programming language allow the support for the persistence that to be used to add without changing the language. Okay. So first we need to declare the class that is known as persistent object. Then we can work on the overloading that may be defined as the ability to redefine the standard functions and name of the operators. We may use different operators, addition, subtraction. Okay, template class is also used to help out to build a data that may be safe and can support the collections and persistent types. It may also provide the persistence without extending the C++ language. And the C++ system that add the features to the C++ language have been built, as also systems that avoid changing the languages. ODMG, C++ Object Definition Language. The object oriented or object based database management group is an industry consortium that is aimed at the standardizing the object oriented database. So in particular, we need to have persistent programming languages that may include the standards for C++, Smalltalk, and Java. These are some languages that can be used for developing the object-oriented database model, like ODMG 93, ODMG 2.3, which is the extension of the Java. Object-oriented management group, ODMG, is a consortium. It may work on the standards during the C++ programming language that may avoid the changes to the C++ languages. So it also provides the functionality via template classes and the class libraries. ODMG types. So it may support different types. Template class may be used to specify the references. Template class that may be used to define the set of the objects. It may have different methods that may include the insert operation and delete operation. And there may be other collection of the classes, like in case of duplication, we may have the duplication of the objects. It may also have the variables that may have length vary also provided, the version of many standard types provided, like the longitude and string. The interpretation of these types is platform independent, and it is dynamically allocated data, and it is allocated in the database that may not be in the main memory. So this is all about the ODMG type. So this is an example of how we can write a code for ODMG, Object Oriented Data Modeling Group. This is a code written in C++, and it may be used to define the objects. It may be used to define different classes and types of the data sets in that object oriented data model. Okay, so this is the code in which we can define the date, we can define the branch, and we can define the account number of account holder using C++ programming languages. So this is all about the structure of object-oriented data model, how we can use different kinds of programming languages, how we can use C++ programming languages to define the object-oriented data model. So you can find it difficult, but it is very important to understand that object-oriented data model can deal with some of the complex data types, some of the complex data structures that may not be defined, that may not be deal with the relational database model. Okay, so thank you very much for today's class, and we will meet again in the next class with the next lecture. Thank you.